Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. It's finally here. Well, I mean, okay, it's gonna be here in a few days, but for me, it's finally been here for a few days at this point. So let's go ahead and talk about kind of first impressions here for the Ivalice Chronicles, aka Final Fantasy Tic Tacs, as I like to call it here. Okay, I will say right off the bat, we're going to start off addressing the sort of new folks here that have never experienced this thing whatsoever, and then the whole rest of the thing is going to be dedicated to the old timers because there's so much fun stuff to cover. So, for the new guys, let me just go ahead and put it this way. Everything that you've heard about this game basically is either there or improved. That is the simplest way to put this. That this is the most literal remake I think I've ever seen, where they basically remade the thing from the ground up, fixed a bunch of things that needed fixing, but they left the stuff that matters. And as an example, for the old timers here, you may remember that there's one archer in Dorter Trade City early on that basically shows up to the fight unprepared, doesn't have his bow with him. He forgets to pick it up, and yeah, even on the harder difficulty, he still has forgotten to pick up his bow. So all of the stuff that was previously an oversight or forgotten or just like kind of cooler in retrospect than maybe they originally intended, all of that stuff is still there and improved and whatever else, like from all previous versions. Whether you like the fact that the mobile version would save where you were if you accidentally alt F4 out of the game, that absolutely applies to every situation, even though it doesn't tell you that it does that. Do you like the snappiness of the PS1 version? For the most part, they went with all the snappy stuff from that one and improved upon it. Did you like the cutscenes from the PSP version? Not only did they bring them back, they made them look better, and they also redid the voices so that they don't sound like, well, wimpy, for lack of a better term. That was my issue with the PSP version, of just like, the dialogue was better, but it was delivered so, like, I just couldn't take it seriously. They redid it. It's the same dialogue, but just that better delivery absolutely nails it this time around. So we'll show more of that in just a bit of a second here. But yeah. So for the new folks, essentially what it boils down to with this game is just it's a very well-written political drama on a chessboard for all intents and purposes. You've got very deep customization for all of your custom characters, and that's basically what it comes down to. You go from fight to fight, you experience the story as you go through, and, well, you experience all the various tumults of the various characters as you progress your way through the whole story there, building up your team, customizing these people as they come along, and making all kinds of weird and wacky combinations. Essentially, the combat is what you're doing most of the time, but when it comes to the story stuff, it's kind of the fun stuff to chew on in between. And if you want it to go faster, if you want to skip certain bits of it, that is also a new thing that they've added in this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off with just the UI stuff here. So we're going. This is going to be for the folks that have been here for a little bit of a while, that are familiar with this game. I'm assuming that's going to be the majority of the people looking at this. Because FFT is legendary in the genre. It has been around since the very beginning. It's one of the first things in the genre that I have ever touched, arguably the very first, because I was originally looking for something completely different and then wound up with FFT on my PS1 there. And I've had every single version of this thing up to this point, whether I wanted to or not. I have 3 copies of the PS1 version because I kept losing it. I have the PSP version on the PSP, on the iPad, on the phone. Like, every time that it came out anywhere, I've got it. So, thank you to Square for reaching out and providing a code for it this time. Hell, I already had it pre-ordered at the time that they reached out and provided a code. It wouldn't even accept the code until I went and actually ended up undoing that pre-order. Which, by the way, this did come with pre-order bonuses. I'm actually not sure where they are. Didn't bother looking. I was too busy chewing on everything else. It just occurred to me. But let's go ahead and get into this here. So for the old timers, obviously the UI design has been impeccably redone in just all kinds of fun ways. There are a few things that may get you if and when you're used to the original controls. But I just love the fact that all the characters are constantly chattering all the time now. It gives them a ton more personality. There's a lot of little in-jokes thrown into the UI and whatever else. As far as equipment and abilities go, fans of Tactics Ogre might appreciate the fact that the square menu actually made itself available in this version. And additionally, if you were curious about what all of your effects were at any given time, you can actually just hit R3 at any given time and it will provide all that stuff for you. If you preferred the original PS1 or PSP controls or whatever else, you can actually swap around which buttons do what, and additionally, if you wanted to have the original input icons, you can swap that around as well. So like right now, I'm on a Steam Deck, but I did swap out for the Sony buttons, which I personally really appreciate. As far as the jobs go, it's a hell of a lot easier to tell what's going on here than it ever was before, with the ability to basically just go and learn abilities from a job without switching to it very quickly through this menu here. You can swap out if you want to, but with everything available all on one menu, it's very easy to tell what's going on. It's very easy to get people built up. To the point that throughout the, I'm kind of towards the tail end of Chapter 2 here with the time that I had, and I have not once even really cared about going to go pick up crystals and stuff like that to kind of speedrun people, because it's just been that simple to get everybody built up. So I really appreciate that, that it doesn't feel like there's that sort of tedious grind, as it were. Additionally, you can rename everybody up to and including, this is actually one thing that it has over Tactics Ogre Reborn, is that you can actually rename your name to generics. So, for example, yes, his name officially was translated to Lad, but dang it, Rad is Rad. He stays as his name. But yeah, you can rename everybody to whatever you'd like, and yeah, even promote Boko if you like over here. Gotta have your fancy chicken and whatnot. You got favorites if you have particular units that you want to make sure you don't accidentally misplace. And yeah, this is just a really cozy thing in general. Like, as far as all of the UI design here, it just feels fantastic. There's only, actually, going back to that menu real quick, you might notice if there's any particular things that that do seem like it would be out of place or whatever else that you may not necessarily pick up on in the first place. So like, let's say we go over here, we go ahead and give her spears. And we go over here, and like one of the things that I know a lot of people wanted to try to do in all the different versions of this thing is dual wielding spears, which I'm assuming the game engine just couldn't handle or something like that. But either way, but I will mention that, yeah, you can't dual wield these, but you can do two-hand them if you want, you know, that sort of thing. So either way, good stuff. I appreciate that all that stuff is mentioned very clearly. It was somewhat mentioned in the original, but it's a lot clearer this time around. And yeah, if you're curious about its performance on Steam Deck, by the way, it's fantastic. We're gonna go ahead and address one little quirk on that in just a bit of a moment. But first things first, I want to go to the outfitter here, and I want to mention the one issue I have with the UI. This is kind of oddly specific, and admittedly, I might be missing something. Okay, but like if you go to the if you go over to the store here, and let's say in the past you would just go through your entire team and go through everybody and essentially leave with one big bill. In this particular case, if like let's say you put this on here, you have your total cost, but if you back out of that, it's gone. So this basically means that that you would more or less do this one character at a time. But it is a lot faster than it ever was if you just want to do the sort of quote-unquote optimal options. Personally, I would much prefer the headgear over the green beret in this case, but whatever, you know. It will optimize as best as it can, but this also means that you can very quickly back out of things if there's particular things you don't want to be doing. So either way, yeah. I've gotten used to it. I feel like it's probably the better way to do it overall at this point, because one thing that this does create is that you don't have that situation where you're accidentally upgrading a bunch of units that you're not using, since you are individually going through each of them one by one. So in the end, I feel like it's still a better choice to do it this way, if that makes sense. But anyway, let's go ahead and give this dude a bit of a thing here. There you go. Go ahead and just confirm that, and there we go. So let's go ahead and hop into a fight here. So as was theorized up to this point, if you go and hop into a fight, you can choose to fight it, you can choose to leave it, or you can just walk onto that tile. Sorry for the random cut there. I got a cold right as this comes out, of course, naturally, every time. Anyway, though. So, let's go ahead and just pop all these guys here. I will say a lot of the corrections that they made in this one, they have been very subtle. And I appreciate how extremely subtle they've been. So, for example, like one of the builds I was talking about testing out recently when I was going through the PS1 version and the War Lines version was the charging battle axe build. Essentially, the battle axe and the random weapons in general, they had a very weird not quite niche before, where their purpose was kind of questionable, where it's essentially kind of like a random damage weapon. Like, they have a chance to do an absolute ton, more than anything else, but most of the time they fail. And I feel like in this particular case, rather than, let's say, something like a 30% chance of success, it feels to me like they're closer to 50% or so this time around. They feel a lot more reliable, and especially when it comes to stuff like the Archer, the charging ability has been surprisingly useful. In fact, over here, this guy, Justin, the charging archer here, he's actually consistently been the MVP on the team more often than not. Like, he one-shot one of the bosses that we're going to go ahead and... Do we really have to worry about spoilers here? I don't know, but he has consistently been able to one-shot things with aim plus 20, which is actually possible to pull off this time around. Like, aim plus 20 here, this guy, he's able to actually outspeed this guy and drop a one-shot on him. It's great. So yeah, that stuff has been amazing, and especially combines really well with the dancers. So, like, dancers plus charge units are really solid. I'm currently trying to turn Alos here into a mime so that I can go ahead and mimic the dancer and the bard and whatnot. But yeah, actually, one of the reasons that I have an arithmetician on the team is because I wanted to see how they nerfed it, because they did mention that there were a few things that they changed, including how utterly overpowered the arithmetician is, which I feel like the dancer is easily better than the calculator this time around. Because in this particular case, what we see is that, yeah, the dancer's just going and turning people into frogs at random. But when it comes to the calculator, they're kind of... They're basically like, if you're a Pokemon fan, they're basically a Regigigas. Like, they have all this insane power, but they functionally miss their first turn, and they are just as insanely slow as they've always been. So this means that while they still have immense power to them, they're still really good units. That initial kind of like slowdown, the fact that they have to take some time to get going, works surprisingly well. Like, they don't feel like they've been that nerfed power-wise. I feel like there is there might have been a drop-off in their offensive abilities, but there's definitely been a really good amount of performance from them regardless. So I feel like they're exactly where they need to be. It feels right. It's like one of those weird changes you wouldn't exactly expect, of like a partial nerf to offense and then a massive nerf to their initial turn, but it just works. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that whole situation there. Admittedly, I might be a little bit off on that, because this was a class that was rumored to be so insane in the first place there, that I literally just never used it for a very long time there. So if I am missing something, by all means, feel free to let me know. Now, as far as other changes that I've noticed, they did change a lot of like little stuff in the background. Like, for example, the attack on the manor early on, they actually changed it so that Zalvek's using his proper equipment from when you run into him later. You see situations where, like, the cutscenes around Chapter 2, where it was kind of weird that you were going from place to place and then just sort of like re-encountering the same people like in multiple different cutscenes back to back. In those particular situations, they just have those cutscenes play back-to-back, because why wouldn't they? So little changes like that are really good to see. You've got, let's see, what else is going on here? You've got things like the fast forward goes. The fast forward feature from mobile is back, so you can easily fast forward through all of this stuff. Again, makes all of the grind fights go insanely quick. I haven't felt like there's as much quirkiness to the way that JP is generated, like we saw in, like, let's say the PS1 version. And additionally, there's some weirdly specific options on here. Like, there's one that I absolutely love here, and I don't know who this is for. There's an option that basically adds sound visualization to the sides of your screen. Now, this is going to look absolutely fugly for most people, but for me personally, I used to pop the PS1 disc into my computer and listen to the soundtrack on Windows Media Player, and it would have those little zigzags going and playing in the background, and I can't help but feel that that's what they're trying to reference with this. I don't know if that's accurate. I have no way to know if that's accurate, but for me, it certainly feels that way. So either way, maybe it's accurate, maybe it isn't. I have absolutely no idea, but let's go ahead and fast forward through this. There was absolutely no reason to do that right there. But either way, I just love that that's there as a feature. Also, I love that there's suddenly a bunch of noise coming from the floor the moment I start talking about that, but let's go ahead and move on. Without unlocking absolutely every single class, I got most of them during the sort of initial period that I had here. I will have sort of fuller review in a little bit here. But as far as first impressions go, as far as the different classes go, from the Squire here, I do appreciate that they mentioned that there's additional abilities potentially for the Chatter Squire. You do have his usual abilities that are on here as well, and yeah, everything's more or less the same with the Squire. For the Chemist, that's where I mentioned that the changes came in for Treasure Hunter. So it even mentions when these effects are in here. They're actually pretty open about the changes to a lot of things here. But like for the Chemist, they do mention that the probability of finding rare items is increased for Chemists. So if you do double stack the abilities, since a lot of these abilities are going to be built into those characters. For the Knight, I feel like their abilities have gotten... I feel like they're more averaged out across the board. I don't remember the exact specific numbers. Obviously, when it comes to stuff like Rend Weapon, Rend Armor, those are still going to be the most expensive. But I feel like it's a little bit less than Wodel, but a little bit more than PS1, if I recall correctly. Though I will note that while parry feels a bit worthless early on, it does still stack reasonably well with stuff like evasion items. So I feel like cloak, parry, evasion, parry. I already mentioned parry, but all that combined together does work reasonably well. At least up to Chapter 2-ish here, and I'm sure once you get the main Gauche going with that combination, you can become near untouchable as you could before. But yeah, initially I wasn't sure if it was working correctly, but obviously you need at least some evasion to be able to evade things, and not everything's going to be fully evadable. But it does at least give you a little bit more information as far as all that stuff is concerned. With the Archer, as we already saw, the aim abilities are way faster than they used to be before, so that's pretty useful. I can't say that... I don't understand why Speed Surge is so expensive, because truth be told, like, unless you are running like a full evasion build and can take advantage of something like this, I can't really see spending that much and sacrificing any of the other defensive abilities to put on Speed Surge, but I'm sure there's niche cases for this. It just feels weird that this got this much of a bump in terms of expense, but whatever, it is what it is. Concentration, I assume this has some additional properties to it. Actually, this even had an achievement attached to it called Guaranteed Hit that supposedly was supposed to make everything guaranteeable. Now, there are still evasion abilities that get past this, and actually one of the cute little changes that they made in this one is they tell you which thing managed to avoid the hit. So like if they avoid it with their accessory, it'll mention cloak avoidance. If they block it with their weapon, it'll say weapon parry, and obviously they always did the animation difference, but it's cool to see that they mention like shield parry, weapon parry, cloak avoidance. It's just cool that it's there. Monk is as cracked as it always was, nothing really new there, though there was one weird indirect nerf in terms of life font and mana font. So these two abilities, along with stepping on certain tile effects, prevent you from actually resetting your turn, which, yeah, no duh, but it's just kind of interesting that that's a weird limitation of the system here. That, yeah, I personally have found myself completely avoiding life font for this particular reason, so just something to bear in mind. White Mage was basically the same as it was before. Black Mage is still as absurd as it was before. Like in the entirety of Chapter 1, it's just like put a Black Mage on it and everything gets vaporized. Time Mage feels like they throw out their ability a bit faster, though I have seen... I'm not going to speculate on the numbers specifically, because I have seen a lot of back and forth over like the original like kind of casting time versus action time and whatever else. To me, it feels like Time Mage and especially the Mystic are a hell of a lot faster. Like the Mystic in general, it feels like most of their abilities were coming out dang near instantly. Like they've definitely got like Tactics Ogre Witch vibes at this point, so they still are as questionably accurate as they always were, but I definitely liked using the Mystic a lot more this time just due to their speed. Orator is still... like, you really just need one ability from Orator. They're already ridiculous. Summoner's way faster, way more reliable. So yeah, if you love the Summoner skill set, again, way faster. In fact, this is actually the first playthrough of FFT in a while where I haven't actually found myself immediately gravitating towards the Geomancer, because all the other ones are finally so fast that this isn't like the default that makes your debuffs come out quick type guy, you know? Though, granted, area petrification is still fantastic, but still. I just kind of throwing that out there. And yeah, so in general, that's where those all land. So yeah, Mystic got way buffed. Orator, roughly the same as it was before, but I'm honestly surprised Orator didn't get nerfed. For those unfamiliar, their Entice ability basically works on almost every unit in the game and has anywhere from like a 15 to 45% chance to just instantly change units' loyalty permanently. Without any real way to be defended against, except for Finger Guard, which basically nothing has. So, as of so far, I haven't seen anything running Finger Guard. I was expecting to see more of that. Dragoon feels about the same as it was before. Dragonheart is still as okay as it was before. Samurai feels roughly the same. Arithmetician, I already mentioned the changes to that one. And Dancer is still as obscenely overpowered as it always was. I haven't used ninjas yet on this one, but presumably they are still about the same. Alright, so with that all being said, let's go ahead and talk about a few more random UI things, because I find this very interesting. So, focus filters. So there's a lot of folks that got upset at various other entries, and I'm sure that's why this is here. Essentially mentioning that they either liked a focus effect or didn't like the focus effect. Like, I personally thought it was way too intense in something like Triangle Strategy. Some folks were wanting more of it in something like Tactics Ogre Reborn. Obviously, these are different teams, but I'm assuming everyone's talking in the water cooler. But you can actually have it either off for everything, on for everything, on for battles, off for battles, that kind of thing. You can pick and choose when and where you want it to appear. One thing I will mention, and this is specifically for Steam Deck, I don't know if this applies to other systems. If you are on Steam Deck, turn VSync off. It will not add anything, and it will destroy your frame rate. I have no idea why this is on by default. I emailed them about this, saying please just turn this off by default. It just like tanks your frame rate. I don't know why, but don't hit that button. Do not let that thing happen. Okay. Next thing I wanted to cover is the Tactician difficulty. So far, what I've seen in this difficulty, and we're going to go into a fight here. This will contain spoilers if you are unfamiliar with the game, so feel free to tune out and go buy the thing. Otherwise, if you are okay with some spoilers here, first of all, I love that we have the Tactics Ogre menu in terms of going into the castle. We have the again, it just feels like somebody was playing Tor in the background while they were designing this. But yeah, we'll get into the differences between the fights, because I feel like even on Tactician, it feels like enemies do more, but you don't do less. So it feels like it's less forgiving, but feels roughly the same, like, overall difficulty wise. Like, I haven't noticed that there's some crazy amounts of, FFT 1.3 type skills flying around. I haven't noticed anything insanely broken or whatever else, but I did notice that when they do get an effective hit off, something's getting flattened, So, like, the archer guy over there is still perfectly capable of one-shotting bosses and whatnot, but at the same time, if, like, let's say you have somebody landing a critical with a high compatibility and whatever else, they're toast. So there's that. Obviously, we've got stuff like Auto Potion that's still as ridiculous as it always was, but we'll get to that in a minute. Alright. Do as you do. Go do those. Gonna fast forward through all these guys' turns. I do find it very funny that when they redid the camera controls for this thing, it's actually the same way I redid the controls on my PS Vita for the PSP and PS1 versions. Oddly specific. Obviously, there's no relevance, but I do appreciate that we're kind of thinking on the same wavelength there. So, appreciate that. Anyway, we'll just go ahead and throw out some Nameless song. I forgot to give this guy his life song there, so we'll just go ahead and kind of move you about there. Let's go ahead and have you head this direction. Go ahead and wait over here. So you head over this way. Yeah, like this, currently what OBS is doing, and obviously I think I have Chrome doing something in the background here as well. This is the kinds of stuff that you typically would see when, for example, you had your VSync on. So just be aware that that is a thing on deck. Alright, anyways, I will be right back, actually, because I gotta go deal with some stuff. Alright, so a few other odds and ends that were really interesting. So, in terms of story fights, at this point you actually have a situation where fights actually will not, units essentially will not get interrupted in the middle of their scene. So, like, if somebody's knocked out, they can get brought back up by a cutscene, and essentially we'll just go through their dialogue before getting knocked out again. So essentially, this is a slight tweak of what happened there before, but this does mean that certain cases where dialogue could be cut off no longer can be cut off. So, that is a bit of a thing. But also, when it comes to bomb units, they actually ended up changing a decent bit as well. So the reason that this matters is before there was no indication that they were something that hovered. So oftentimes people would, let's say, fire a crossbow and try to shoot it over them, only to then realize that they like hovered right over the shot and their shot couldn't land. Or let's say they they tried to use earth abilities on them and, well, same thing. So what's cool is that they adjusted so that that there is a permanent hover icon over them, and additionally, self-destruct actually doesn't self-destruct anymore, which is part of the reason that I was so excited to work pigs into it this time, because I'm assuming bequeath bacon is probably going to be the same thing. I don't know yet, and I hope that they did use the name bequeath bacon. I forgot to double check that. Still remains one of the coolest ability names, but. Well, still haven't had a chance to go check that yet. There's a lot to go over, quite frankly. Oh, actually, one interesting bit on guests is you can't actually change your guest's class anymore. You can still change their equipment. So, for example, like in Chapter 1, if you decide to go, let's say, over level a little bit and use the spawns to go get a hold of a flail, you can still give that to your squires to make them absolutely crush things. But yeah, no, you can't, like, let's say, do the classic of making Delita into a ninja or something. So there's that too. So essentially he does get locked to a squire, which, like, on one hand, obviously there were some memes that were out of that, but realistically speaking, that makes a lot more sense. Like, you're not worried about messing with them because they are not your party, they are doing their own thing, and because they're in a separate menu, you probably won't accidentally mess with them in ways that you shouldn't. So that's always nice too. Okay. By the way, have I mentioned before that dancers are freaking amazing? Because, yeah, this fight is currently being carried by that dancing samurai over there. I love it. Anyway. And I love that this stupid build works, too. Like, it has no reason to. It just does. It's great. Okay. So, a few other odds and ends. As far as the chatter is concerned, it's hit or miss, but on the whole, I feel like it's a pretty solid positive. The chatter has been very, very cozy for the most part. It's been cool to see the NPCs going and talking. Early on, it felt like a bit much, but over time, it definitely grew on me, and I definitely appreciated all the little jokes that they put in all over the place. So I appreciate that all the units have their own little quirks and whatnot. And additionally, I want to mention that as far as the AI is concerned, while for the most part it does do a lot of the same stuff that it used to do before, I did notice that guest AI was a lot more useful. Things like Algus and Delita in, like, Dorder, let's say, did have a tendency to actually team up on things a lot better. They were a lot better at using their throwing rocks to go knock stuff off of cliffs and whatnot, and they tended to prefer assisting your units as opposed to just, like, blindly charging into stuff. Like I noticed in the Sandrat Siege, they actually would hold off until you killed off the first monk there before charging in, so good stuff there. Again, I don't know how consistent that is, but in my personal experience, that has been 100% of the time. So that's pretty neat too. And yeah. Let's see. Let's get to some closing notes and whatever else here. So as far as the new kind of cutscene options, State of the Realm, stuff like that, that stuff has been fantastic. Giving a really, really solid clue as far as what's going on in the story. It's been really good at keeping up with things, and I love that they actually took the old PSP cutscenes. They actually didn't take them out. They redid it so that when you're going and reading about all of your exploits on the news or whatever else, they have the dramatic PSP version, but they redid all of the voice acting with the new voice actors, and it feels way more natural. Like, it doesn't sound like they're in a high school play anymore. So it's really great to see that. So we do see a good bit of kind of solid performance there. They feel way more natural, vocally speaking. So yeah, really appreciated that. Very, very solid improvement as far as the voice work goes in that regard. Additionally, dang, he dodged it. Well, it's fine. He's stuck in a corner anyway. We can just go ahead and aim 20 this lady forever. There's no need to do it that way, but dang it, we will. And I think in the future, when I'm going and doing more videos on this thing, I'm going to have to turn down... I'm going to have to adjust some stuff. It seems like OBS is being a little bit funny with this whole thing, which, admittedly, I probably should have seen that coming. That one's on me. But it's okay. It is what it is. But it's just great, for me personally, it's great to see that generics still hold up so dang well in this one. Speaking of generics, let's go ahead and talk about away missions. So the errands, as they're now called, they're handled in such a way that that when you send somebody out, you basically can't just skip all the days entirely. Those things are completely free at this point, which is fine. Like, personally, I find it way more convenient. Find it pretty darn useful. So, here, let's see, can we hit this guy with anything? Not currently, though. We might as well just do a little bit of a cure action in that particular regard, if that's who it's going to aim for.
I should be fine.
So yeah, I do appreciate that they're basically free. The dramatic kind of voice lines from all your NPCs are just pretty fun to listen to, and it's way more clear this time around that Lad, Lavian, and Alicia are there for those away missions. Seeing as you get the three of them, it immediately unlocks the thing as soon as they're on your team. It lets you know that they're unlocked on the team, so it's, again, way better in terms of flow in that regard. So much more clear that that's their purpose. And additionally, again, since they're functionally free, you actually can train units pretty effectively using that particular feature. Feels very similar to something like Felseal in that regard, so appreciate that. Let's see. I haven't tried out the stories, like little side stories that those come with as of yet, so we'll see how that goes. And yeah, we'll report on that on the kind of full review and whatever else once that ends up happening. And yeah, so that will be, I think that's more or less it for the first impressions here. So I personally find this to be the coziest version of this thing by far, and it's not even a little bit close. Performance-wise on the Steam Deck, it seems to function pretty darn well. I probably need to turn down the resolution for recordings in the future, because again, you know, just kind of started rambling. I've had a whole lot of work in the background, had a whole lot of other chaos in the background, so I can only get to so much at one time. You know, I would like to do more editing or whatever else, but this is what I can do right now. So we'll be putting out a bunch of guides for all the different classes and whatnot as we go forward. And actually, one more little side note that I want to mention here, something that I loved right from the get-go. You'll notice in the visuals here, when they were talking about the CRT look, it's hard to appreciate in trailers and such, but when you're looking at it in person, you can really appreciate all the little dots from the CRT visuals that were there back in the day. And like, I wasn't sure why it felt so right when I was looking at it, why it felt so weird to look at the phone version or whatever else. But I went and like compared the two side by side, and yeah, just like if you're comparing it with like the PS1 on a CRT, it just looks dead on. It's fantastic. Again, they didn't need to do that. There's a lot of things that they just straight up didn't need to do, but they did because they felt like because it was awesome. And I love that. I love that to pieces. I love that all these different oddly specific customization options are there. Again, the visualization option for audio, there is no practical reason to have that there whatsoever, but I love that it's there because it feels like having the old Windows Media Player off in the background, you know? So, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, I love this version. Like, as far as how much of a remake it is a total remake. Is this the definitive version? As far as I'm concerned, there's no question at all that this is the definitive version. Like, I had some people joking, sending messages like, oh, but it doesn't have the multiplayer. I think they actually referenced the multiplayer in PSP. I'm not certain, but one of the first away missions is actually an away mission talking about how the chickens are being attacked, and you send some people out to go deal with it. I can't remember for certain if it was just one of the random ones that was there since PS1, but I'm like fairly confident that it's a new one. I'm not 100% certain, but I will choose to believe it is, even if it isn't. So that'll be about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by and taking a look at this whole thing. I hope it's useful for you. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. And also, I'm not convinced that your weapons don't break, because I have been using this samurai for a few hours now. I have not seen a single one of their weapons break. So I think weapon breaks might potentially not be a thing for them. I'm not sure. Like, I haven't seen any mention of them having a specific chance to break, but yeah, like, they still have the ammo count for them, but I have not seen them break. So, you know, there's that. Alright, so, y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by. I apologize that this one's a bit more casual than the usual dramatic ones, but just wanted to give the full, honest opinions on this whole thing. God, I love that the charge axe actually works. That's so satisfying. Okay, alright, see ya.